Welcome to LifeTrack 401. We're about to land this plane. You're coming to the end of your 3-week series in LifeTrack Phase 1. Tonight we're going to talk about discovery. I'm really excited about this. So let's jump straight into it. Our hope for you today at Rejuvenate Church, our hope is that you take a step toward understanding how your uniquely designed personality, coupled with the spiritual gifts God has given you, help reveal a fulfilling path to your destiny. Proverbs 25:2 says it's God's privilege to conceal things and our privilege to discover them. Together, let's discover all that God has planned for our generation and make a positive difference in the kingdom. All right, let's talk about your personality first. Discovering your personality. We are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. So let's talk about 4 personality types. And we'll hit these in the question and answer, fill in the blank type setting to begin with, and then I'll delve deeper into what they actually mean. Examining your 4 personality types. D, that's 3% of people. And again, we'll go over what each one of these mean in a little bit. I, 11%. So D is 3%, I is 11%, S is 69%, so the vast majority of people fall in the S category. And C is 17%. And then you see the scripture in Psalm 139, verse 14, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Though all of us are going to fall somewhere in that D-I-S-C range, we're not all going to be the same. And thank God for the uniqueness that He's made us in. So we'll talk about our DISC assessment here shortly. 2, elements that help you develop your personality. A, your family history plays a big part in who you are and the personality you have. You take on various character traits from your parents, your grandparents, maybe even your siblings. So family history has a lot to do with your personality. Training, how you were raised, how you were brought up. School training, job training, they all play into your personality. Number 3, mentors. Who is it who poured into you growing up, coming up? Whether that be parents, whether that be other family members, friends, pastors, youth pastors, what have you. Whoever's poured into your life greatly affects your personality. And D, life experiences, the things you've gone through, whether good, bad, or indifferent, all play a part in developing your personality. Number 3, exploring the different areas of your personality. Number 1, you have your public personality. That's A, your public personality. That's where you put the you out there in front of everyone that you want to portray. I like to call it your ambassador self. That's the best version of you that you can come up with to show people in public. B, the private you. This is the real you. This is the you behind closed doors when you think nobody's watching. That's the you that's the most you can be. C, the unperceived you. That is personality traits, flaws, defects, what have you, that you don't even realize you have. Ways you talk, mannerisms, facial expressions, things you don't see or don't think are there. That's all part of your personality. And D, today we're trying to discover your potential. That's the best possible version of you. That's the you who God created you to be. That's the you with purpose who's walking out that purpose. All right, so we're going to start with your DISC assessment. That's going to be on page 63. Now basically, here's what you'll do. There are 4 different sections, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there are 5 statements in each section. Basically, what you're going to do is read each statement, and then you're going to answer as truthfully as humanly possible. For instance, the very first statement under number 1 is, I am assertive, demanding, and decisive. If that's never you, circle 1. If that's you rarely, circle 2. If you sometimes exhibit those traits, circle 3. If that's you often, circle 4. And if that's absolutely you all the time, circle 5. You'll do that for every single question in every single section. For the 5 questions in each sections, you'll tally up the numbers that you circle, and that'll give you your total score in the blank for each one. And then after you do that, you'll look at your totals to see what your dominant total is. And then as you turn the page, 64 shows your personality types. And you see there in the first section there's a D, the second section's an I, the third section's an S, and the fourth section is a C. That directly corresponds to the 4 sections on page 63. So when you flip over, everything is unilateral. It goes across the line. So if you scored a 25 in section 1, when you flip that over, that means you are a D personality. If you have 2 personalities, or 2 personality types who score the same, your high score is a 20 or 25 in 2 different areas, or whatever the case may be, then you see DI, ID, SD, CD, those are combination personalities. A lot of us may fall into the combination. We may not always be one decisive personality type. So take a few minutes to go through this assessment. You don't want to rush through it. You don't want to overthink each question. You want to give your best, your gut reaction, what you know the truth about your personality to be. But answer these carefully, answer them truthfully, total your scores up, and that'll give you a good idea of what personality type you are. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that. All right, if everyone's finished, let's talk about, we're on page 66, let's talk about opportunities for personal growth. You've gone through the DISC assessment, you know what personality type you fall under, so let's talk about some areas for growth if you fall under these personality types. If you're a D, that means you're dominant, direct, task-oriented, decisive, organized, outgoing, and outspoken. You should strive to listen to other people more attentively, because a lot of D personalities don't tend to listen to the opinions of others, they tend to force their own. Try to be less controlling and domineering, give place to other people. Develop a greater appreciation for the opinions, feelings, and desires of others, because D personalities tend to think their way is the best way, and their opinion is the right opinion. Not always true. Put more energy into personal relationships. Ds are typically leaders, yes, but they don't tend to invest a lot personally in the people around them. Show your support for the other team members. Remember that you are not the most important member of the group. You're of equal importance. Even if you're the leader, everyone lends something to the conversation. If you're an I, that means you're influential, interested in people, witty, easygoing, outgoing, people-oriented. But there are areas for growth. Weigh the pros and cons before making a decision. Be less impulsive. I's tend to make knee-jerk reactions and decisions based on a temporary emotion that might have more permanent effects. Remember to help with tasks more. They're they're more people-oriented rather than task-oriented, so they tend to be more involved in the relational side of the issue rather than the task side of the issue. You need to be able to balance that. Exercise control over your actions, words, and emotions. Sometimes influential, interested in people, witty, outgoing I's tend to talk first and think second. We need to balance that. Focus more on details and facts, because they are important to the conversation. Where the I may be more interested in the end game, the overall big picture, or the people involved, you need to focus on what's important as well. Remember to slow down your pace for other people. A lot of times I's are go-getters, and not everybody can follow their pace. If you're always in 5th gear, sometimes you need to dial it back and downshift to 4th or 3rd so that everybody can catch up with you. Talk less, listen more. I's are talkers. They're outgoing people, and they tend to kind of command a room whether they intend to or not. So talk less, listen more. If you're an S, that means you're steady, stable, analytical, people-oriented, and introverted. Consider how change is healthy. Try to change more willingly. S's are resistant to change by and large. So be willing to add some change to your life. Variety is the spice of life anyway, right? Be more direct in your interactions. Because they're introverted, they tend to be kind of on the fringes, on the outside looking in. You need to be more intentional and more purposeful in your interactions. Focus on overall goals of your family or group rather than specific procedures. They're people-oriented, but they're also extremely analytical, which makes them get caught up a lot of times in the small details. Again, you need to be able to balance the two. Deal with confrontation constructively. Introverted people tend to shy away, number one, from confrontation, and sometimes confrontation is good if it's handled correctly. So be willing to engage it if the greater good can be achieved. Develop more flexibility. S's tend to be, because they're stable and analytical, they tend to want to go one direction and one direction only. You need to be able to go around the curves as well. Try to show more initiative. Introverted people don't typically jump to the forefront. Sometimes it's necessary. If you're a C, compliant, competent, task-oriented, goal-oriented, and introverted, concentrate on doing the right things, not just doing things right. There is a difference. C personalities are more procedural, but you also need to make sure that you're doing what is just, what is fair, what is correct, what is righteous. Be less critical of others' ideas and methods. A lot of times C personalities, when they hear something they don't agree with or that they don't like, they assume it's wrong, and they tend to be judgmental in that. You need to back off that a little bit and give and be more open-minded and open-hearted toward people. Respond more quickly to accomplish others' goals. The C personality is task and goal oriented, but it's typically with their tasks and their goals, and they're not as, because they have that introverted personality, they're not as apt to dive in and help others, and you need to be able to expand your circle to include someone other than yourself. Be more decisive. That goes without saying. Focus less on facts and more on people. Again, they're goal and task oriented and less people oriented. Again, there needs to be a balance struck. So we've talked about our personality. Let's talk about our spiritual gifts. Very important thing. It's a very important thing to know your spiritual gifts to help you realize who you are and what your purpose is in life. So let's talk about first what spiritual gifts are not. Spiritual gifts are not, number one, natural aptitudes, strengths, or abilities. They are not natural aptitudes, strengths, or abilities. We all have natural abilities that we've learned from those around us regardless of our faith. Many times our natural abilities and strength are redeemed by the Lord to become spiritual gifts, but they don't necessarily mean that they are our spiritual gifts. Number two, they are not character traits. Spiritual gifts are not character traits. We are called to have character, and our gifts should produce the nature of Jesus Christ in each person. A person should not say he has the gift of peace when we are all encouraged to develop the gift of peace. Spiritual gifts offer opportunities for us to exemplify Christ. Number three, spiritual gifts are not titles and positions. They are not titles and positions. They often lead to titles or positions, but you may have the gift without the role or the role without the gift. They don't necessarily go hand in hand. Regardless, we should serve whenever we are given the opportunity. Working in the area of your gifting will allow you to be the person that God has called you to be rather than just doing good things. It's more about purpose than it is about position. And number four, spiritual gifts are not for show. They are endowments given by God to His people for accomplishing His purpose. They're given for the glory of God, not for the glory of you. So how do I receive spiritual gifts? You have to accept Jesus Christ as the Lord of your life. You have to clear out all the junk. You have to be redeemed and reconnected with God. Number 2, B, you have to acquire faith and truth in the area of spiritual gifts. You need to study them. You need to understand them. You need to know what they are and how they function. C, apply yourself to learning about spiritual gifts. Apply yourself to learning about spiritual gifts. Be diligent, again, in your study of spiritual gifts and what they are. Have an understanding of them. And D, ask for the Lord to give you spiritual gifts. Remember, the Holy Spirit is a gentleman. He will not force His way into your life. You must ask Him to come in. You must invite Him. All right, page 68 is our spiritual gift test. You see 72 different questions, or actually statements. And you will score these the same way you scored your DISC assessment. 1 is never, 2 is rarely, 3 is sometimes, 4 is often, and 5 is always. What you'll do on page 68, you'll read each statement. On page 69, you will write your score for each statement. Number 1 says, I like organizing services and events. You score accordingly. If that's not you at all, that's a 1 for never. If rarely you like to do that, that's a 2. Sometimes you like to do that, that's a 3. If you like to do that very often, that's a 4. And if that's you absolutely up one side and down the other, you score that as a 5. And essentially, here's how the scoring will work when you go to tally your scores. The questions are on page 68. Blanks are on 69. The way you score, again, is unilaterally. You score across. So you would take the score for number 1, number 25, number 49, add them together, and you get a cumulative score in this blank. The maximum score is 15 because the maximum score is 5 and you're scoring unilaterally across the board for 3 different questions. Now, you see the A through X for the gifts. You will find those on pages 70 all the way through 72. So if you had a 15 for A, then you would look and see that A is the gift of administration. And accordingly, just like in the DISC assessment, I would ask you to answer these as truthfully as possible. I would ask you to answer them as quickly as possible. Not necessarily your knee-jerk reaction, but your gut reaction. Don't overthink these. Don't answer these the way you hope that you would be. Answer these the way you would answer them right now, based on your opinion about each statement right now. So be truthful. Don't belabor the point. Don't spend too much time on any one question because you'll overthink it. Once you get done scoring them, then you can go through and look at what your spiritual giftings are. I would say anything from a 13 to a 15 is probably an area that you need to look at, 14s and 15s especially. You may have more than one, and that's okay. This is not designed to be an end-all be-all. It is designed to give you an idea to help you hone in on what your true spiritual gifts are. So I'll give you a few minutes to finish that, and then we'll move on. All right, now that everyone has a better idea of what your spiritual gifts are, we can move on to page 73, which is the passion assessment. Now this one is going to take you a little bit more time. This one you're going to have to think about. You may be able to give gut reactions quickly on these questions, but it might require some thought. It did for me personally. I had to go back after the fact and really kind of think about these before I answered them. But it basically narrows down your personal passions in life by asking you 7 questions. The people question, who am I most interested in? What people group, what type of people, what age group, whatever. Answer truthfully. The action question, what do I like the most? Whatever that may be, whatever activity or thing you like the most, that's how you'll answer. The strengths question, when I'm doing blank, I feel the strongest. Whatever that is. The serving question, how can I help someone solely for their benefit? Very important question. So in other words, what is it I can personally do to pour into someone else and not expect anything in return? Number 5, the interest question. What God-honoring things interest me the most? Now remember, you'll answer that with what God-honoring things interest you the most. Not to say that everything that interests you is of a worldly nature, but if it is not necessarily, doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but if it's not a God-honoring thing, then don't put it in there. We're talking about God-honoring interests that you have in life. Number 6, the opportunity question. What opportunities do I have before me? This is something that you need to think about for your life. What open doors do you see in front of you? What specific or general opportunities do you see ahead of you? And number 7, the nostalgia question. When in my life did I feel the most fulfilled? That could be right now, could have been 10 years ago. Whatever the case may be, answer truthfully. All right, and then when you've completed that, and I'll give you a few minutes to complete that, and then we'll go on to the next page. All right, so you've completed your DISC assessment, you've completed your spiritual gifts test, and you've completed your passion assessment. Now, go to page 74, we're going to put it all together. What is my personality type and leadership style? That's whether you're a DISC or a combination of the two. And are you people or task oriented? That's going to determine what leadership style you're going to have and what personality type you have. What are your 2 primary spiritual gifts or natural abilities? Again, you may have scored high on several, but what do you feel like are the 2 primary gifts that you operate in or that you will operate in? What 2 areas am I experienced in or most passionate about? Some of that will come from your passion assessment. Some of that will come from your life or ministry experience. But that's what that's asking for. Based upon the answers above, what is one step I can take to start finding fulfillment in these 3 areas? And that's a 3-part question. Number 1, in your family, what can you do to start walking that purpose out? Number 2, with your personal faith and with Rejuvenate Church, what can you do? And number 3, your field of opportunity or your job. Is there anything you can do there to start walking these out? So take some time on this, really think about it, really go through it and answer everything truthfully and honestly. Because this is going to be your life plan going forward. This is going to be your next 2 or 3 steps in life to fulfilling your purpose. So take some time on this. All right, let's talk about the next step in your life track. And we're almost done here. Number 1, investigate your feelings. Your gift may tie directly into what your temperament or personality is. So the same God who gives spiritual gifts also made up our entire being. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses. You need to know those things about yourself. You need to know what your strong points are, what your weak points are. 2, identify the opportunities. Look for needs. Based upon your gifting, find out where you can be useful. Find out what holes you can plug, what needs you can fill. And then do it. If you see a need, if you feel like you can fill that need, go for it. 3, invest and grow in your gifts. That's going to take a lot of diligence, a lot of discipline. Study the Bible. Research other material on spiritual gifts. There's a million books out there. There's a million references. Get to know people who are using their spiritual gifts and see the path they took. See the progressions they've made. And glean from them whatever wisdom they have to give. Share openly with others the gifts that you have, think you have, or would like to have. Talk about it with someone. Especially someone who might flow in that very gift that you feel like you will flow in. Number 4, inspect your results. Your spiritual gifts should work, first of all. It should be evident that you're operating in that gift. Because gifted people get results. If you have the gift of healing, when you pray for sick people, they get well. If you're operating truly in the gift that you've been given by God, you will see the fruit that it bears. Number 5, insist on feedback from the church family. If you think you have a spiritual gift and you try to exercise it, but no one else in your church thinks you have it, you might not have it. It needs to be confirmed. Feelings are important, but they are far from infallible. Don't operate based on your feelings. Your feelings change with your environment. Go with something more concrete. When members of the body confirm one another's gifts, more can be accomplished because everyone begins to see where they fit and how their gifts work together. Remember, we're one body, and we have to stay connected. Our gifts are for each other, so we need to exercise not only our gifts, but help our fellow man exercise his. 6, invent a small group or join a team. Join the dream team. That's the ministry team here at Rejuvenate Church. Or start a small group. Or join up with a small group if you don't feel like your gifting would be to lead one. Initiate the process today. Where do I go from here? Well, first of all, you'll complete the information form that you started at the beginning of the class. You'll turn it in to be contacted by a team leader if you haven't done this already. Fill out the Dream Team application to get started with ministry. Once contacted, schedule a time to be trained on a Sunday morning. Complete Rejuvenate Church LifeTrack, and when we finish 401, you've completed LifeTrack Phase 1. LifeTrack Phase 2 goes on and on and on, but LifeTrack Phase 1 ends tonight. Start serving on your team and make a lasting difference in the lives of others. And on page 77, here is your Dream Team Leadership application. We'd like you to fill that out. Background information, qualifications for leadership, the honor code. We'd like you to sign off on all of that. And then you have information here about joining the Dream Team, our vision and the way you can partner with us, and the different ministry arms of the Dream Team that you could possibly serve on. So make sure to read through that, get good information for yourself, have an understanding before you start ministering of the kind of things that to expect, the kinds of things that might be expected of you, and just where you can plug in. So I hope that you've learned a lot about yourself. I pray that your giftings are being stirred inside you. And in the name of Jesus, I pray that you join the Dream Team and let your gifts be exposed to the world. Thank you for completing LifeTrack 201 through 401.